No, that was the ocean.
That's the ocean.
That was the ocean. Yeah, yeah.
We're good to go. We get the show on the road.
Alrighty.
All righty then. Good evening and welcome everyone. I'm Kyle Stone and I call the June 28, 2023 Park Authority Board meeting to order. Virginia law authorizes the remote participation of board members provided that a policy exists to ensure that such remote participation is consistently administered. This board has approved policy 111. Any such remote attendance must be approved by the board as long as a physical quorum of the board is actually present. Voice of the remote participant is able to be heard by everyone in the room, and the remote participation comports with the policy. So step one, verification that the remote participant's voice is clear, audible, and at an appropriate volume for the meeting room, and confirmation of their location. We've got 3 members joining us this evening remotely, and they've received preliminary approval. Dr. Carter, are you connected to this meeting remotely?
Yes, I am. And I'm participating from my home in Franconia district.
You're muted.
No, I'm not. I don't have it on mute. I don't know what's happening.
The voices.
You can't hear me? Not on mute.
I'll do another one there for a second.
You can hear me?
Mike or Faisal, can any of you speak just to see if it's one or all
Hey,
three?
it's Mike. How are you?
Yep, it's all 3 of them.
All 3 of them.
Oops.
Didn't complete test.
All right. Who's next?
I was reading her lips. I'm pretty sure she said that joining the meeting from her home in the Franconia.
Yeah, I'm pretty sure she was saying that too, you know.
I don't think
Maybe we're
that,
supposed to say the same thing.
I don't think that passes the sniff test here.
You say something again, please?
Anybody? I can't hear you.
Who's she talking to?
Mike said something.
You.
Hi, how are you?
Waved at us.
She's-
That was on purpose.
Yeah. Here, Jim.
That was me.
Hello, everybody.
What's happening?
Mike is the
They
host.
can't make the audio work in the room. Oh, now they can because they can hear us talking, and they applauded. Although now they're muted, so they have to unmute, or we can't go for it because we can't hear them.
The other 2.
There we go.
Can you hear us?
Yes.
All right, here we go again. Dr. Carter, are you connected to this meeting remotely?
Yes, I am. My name is Cynthia Jacobs Carter, and I am participating from my home in Franconia district.
Well, that's what she said.
Your lip reading is very impressive, Linwood. Thank you. I move that Dr. Carter's voice may be adequately heard in this location.
And I second the motion.
All right. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? That motion carries. Mr. Khan, are you connected to this meeting remotely?
Yes, I'm at my residence in Providence District.
Great. I move that Mr. Khan's voice may be adequately heard in this location.
And I second the motion.
All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay, that motion carries. Last but not least, Mr. Thompson, are you connected to this meeting remotely?
I am from San Diego, California.
All righty. I move that Mr. Thompson's voice may be adequately heard in this location.
And I second the motion.
All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? And that motion carries. Step 2, verification that remote participants' physical absence comports with the policy pursuant to the Park Authority's Policy 111 for remote participation in public meetings. I move that Dr. Cynthia Jacobs Carter, Mr. Faisal Khan, and Mr. Mike Thompson be permitted to participate remotely in this meeting because it comports with the policy we adopted, and a physical quorum is present here at Park Authority Boardroom, 9th floor, Harry Building. Do I have a second?
I second the motion.
All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? That motion carries. All right, we can now get started with the actual agenda today. And Maggie, you have the resource committee.
Thank you, Kyle. I bring the Resource Management Committee to order, and we have one presentation. David, are you doing that, or?
Stephanie will do it.
Oh, wonderful. Hi, Stephanie. Come on up.
Well, hi, everyone. I'm Stephanie Langton, the Resident Curator Program. First, want to thank you all for the opportunity to share our updates tonight. We have some great accomplishments to share and some next steps that we're looking forward to. So I will dive in, maybe not, with the highlights. To begin, we have the program. The program currently oversees 4 leased curator sites, and I'll be sharing photos of each as we go through the presentation this evening. To date, there has been over $1 million of private investment that has gone into these sites by the curators. So some great work is being done there. And the program is full speed ahead with the advertisement of the Mount Gilead House in Centerville later this summer. And I'll touch on that in a little more detail in a moment. So including Mount Gilead, we anticipate 2 more sites to be added to the program in 2024. And this makes a total of 6 RCP sites for the county. And it's a diverse group of structures and uses. This is the Stimson House located in Lorton, the first of the curator sites, and it is past the halfway point in its lease, which ends in the summer of 2026. And so the curator has nearly completed all of the tasks in the required work plan, which means the focus here is finishing up the work plan tasks, interior trim, roof coating are a few that come to mind, nothing too major, and considering a lease extension proposed by the curator. So identifying additional tasks and requirements, and then outlining the procedure for that. The success of the program really hinges on protecting the longevity of the private investment and improvements into the sites. And so this is an important priority for the program. And of course, this is the program's first time approaching this juncture. So here is a
quick question, Stephanie, if I may. Tim Hackman, do curators have the option of extending the lease at fair market value, even if they elect not to put additional investments into the home? Yeah.
That would be outside the scope of the curator program.
Yeah, Tim, we don't currently have a method of addressing that. We're looking at some other options, but currently no.
I would just, and I know this this lease on this particular one was a little shorter than the ones that we've issued since then. And I know it's my understanding it was initially because the curator wanted the shorter time.
Right.
So
That's correct.
if he wants to extend, I hope we can be as creative as possible to keep that body in that house, because he's demonstrated, from my observation anyway, nothing but good work and good faith.
Right.
And the last thing in the world we want is that house sitting
Yeah,
empty.
wouldn't be-
So I hope we can come up with
Yeah, I
something.
think I was talking to Dave before. I think this is going to be a challenge. It's the first time it's come up, and there's several approaches that we can do with respect to what would be the next steps. So we've got time, but
This one was 12 years is my recollection.
No, this one's 9 and
Really?
9.5.
Okay, so less than
Sure.
half what our ones since then.
now
Yeah,
since then, it's been bigger. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah.
Well, this is a good problem to have. We
Yeah.
finished a lease.
Yeah,
and
tell
we
him to
have a
rebuild the garage or
rehabilitated
something.
property.
And we
Build the garage.
And we have a curator who's
Yeah,
potentially interested in sticking
Right.
around and identifying additional work. So
we may want to look at, this is Bill Bowie, we may want to look at some additional items in terms of extending the lease,
Yes.
even triggering an automatic extension because it takes so long to negotiate sometime. So, you know, while we're saying 2026 is right around
Right
the
around the
corner.
corner.
Exactly.
And it'll take us a year to get through it the way we do things. So, you know, I would think that we would want to put something in the lease that says that if we don't engage within the last year and an interest is expressed to extend, that it happens under these terms.
Good idea. Again, I think this is going to be a learning experience. For
Yeah,
everybody, right?
Or possibly just a 1 year automatic extension under certain circumstances or something like that. So at least you don't have this hard deadline.
Right.
Um,
Yeah.
Absolutely, definitely a priority for the program. So yes, this is the house before and after some much needed paint. The curator recently showed this off at the annual open house event last month. This is the rear. And now on to Turner Farmhouse. This was the second property to enter the program, but the first nonprofit. Turner Farmhouse Foundation, the curator, will be using the outbuildings and its and the 5 leased acres of land as a retreat center for retreats to be held by bereavement and grief support groups. So far, the curator has invested well over $500,000 into the improvement of the farmhouse and the outbuildings on site, with a little over $400,000 going towards the adaptive reuse of the garage structure into the retreat center space to host overnight guests. Of note here too is the amount of volunteer labor and materials the curator has secured towards these improvements, with a grand total of over $100,000. So in addition to starting up the retreat calendar in the near future as her renovations are nearing completion, the curator will also turn attention to the preservation of the early 20th century crib barn on site, including a structural assessment with RCP staff closely monitoring the work. And so here's the before and after of the newly renovated retreat center. Per the special exception conditions that the curator has on site, events are to be held with a capacity of 10 overnight guests and 2 facilitators, with hours of operation Monday through Friday, 9 to 5, and weekend events Friday, 3 p.m. to Sunday, 5 p.m. Here's the back of the building and the interior. On to the Hannah P. Clark House, also known as the Ignetti House down in Lorton. This is a 13-year residential lease, and it's been a special pleasure working with the curator on this site, as she is a professional preservationist herself. She's a craftsman who serves as the restoration manager at the Mount Vernon Estate, and she brings her professional expertise to every project. So currently, she is prepping the exterior for new paint, and she's removing all paint off of the exterior siding except for small sections on each part of the house. So she's following this protocol to allow for future paint analysis, since paint layers are a part of the history of the house. And on the interior, she's also working on the removal of existing paint from the wood floors, and she's using a more labor-intensive process with a soy-based chemical, which is a method that they use to refinish floors at Mount Vernon to make sure that none of the historic wood is removed, because sanding floors can take quite a bit of the wood surface away. And so the next slide are images of, on the right there is the work that she's doing on the exterior. Both projects are a labor of love. And then on the left is just an image of the, she's also really improved the landscape with all the gardening that she's done.
Not only follows the standards, but at least the time I talked to her, she's using period tools to do the restoration.
That's amazing.
And she's keeping meticulous record of the work that she's doing. So that's going to be a great case study for the program. Finally, the most recent site to enter the program is the Elmore Farmhouse in Frying Pan Farm Park. This site will be used by the nonprofit Service Source, who provides support and resources to members of the community with disabilities. The farmhouse will serve as an adult day center Monday through Friday, 9 to 5 for a small group of attendees. Currently, the farmhouse remains unoccupied as work is ongoing with a mid-September completion date. Originally, the estimated projected cost of the project was close to $700,000. It looks like as the work goes on, it'll be just shy of $1 million once the work is all completed. Just to note too, there was some damage that they found to the supports and joists, and some of the historic wood had to be removed, but Frying Pan Farm Park was able to reclaim the wood and keep it on site. There we go. So the image to the right is place of the elevator that will be installed shortly. And the image to the left is the interior upstairs, looking at the towards the stairs and the railing. That area just was once closed off entirely, and now it's opened back up. So now onto the properties that are in process to become included in the program and advertised through the program. We are well underway with the advertisement of the Mount Gilead House, with an initial virtual public meeting held last week and an open house event that was held this past weekend. We had a great turnout, close to 20 people came, and a few voicing serious interest in applying. The next steps will be opening the 60 calendar day application period later this summer, and an additional public meeting as another opportunity to share the process with the community and hear questions and comments. So some pretty substantial projects are occurring at a few other sites. Issues with water infiltration in the first level of the Leahy Lost Valley House in Vienna has led to some pretty in-depth mortar restoration work with Windsor Masonry. They've been meticulously working on site starting this past spring, and they are remortaring the original foundation and the original brick portion of the house. And I think I have, yeah, these are photos of the work going on there. And on to Drainsville Tavern, also experiencing a lot of activity there. Currently, Vintage Building is working on site with exterior carpentry repairs, including to the long porch in the back. Also roof replacement and gutter repairs and exterior paint. So these photos show the work in progress. Another project that has wrapped up is the rebuilding of the eastern wall of the tavern, which had sustained pretty significant termite damage. So this is a before, during, and after look at the project. And then finally, Fairfax Arms, which now has a completed historic structure report and treatment plan, which is one of the first steps a property undergoes when it's entering the program. And it will also undergo a well and septic inspection as well, all towards the goal of preparing it for the program. And I believe that's it. I'm happy to answer any questions.
Yes, I talked to David a little while ago, but we've seen Barrett House before in earlier presentations, a lot higher on the list. And at this point, because of this significant historical significance, Fairfax Arms has been swapped for that. But I would only say, you know, I love this program.
I do too.
I wish we could do it faster. There's 3 that I would really like to have people in this year. In Mount Vernon, at least, and you guys know what they are, and they all totally warrant and are ready to go. It's just, you know, the process just takes time.
The process and the amount of staff that's available to handle it, the amount of money disabled, all of those are self-limiting, but I really see a big future in this program. Big future.
Yeah. Hopefully, as we get more into, we'll get faster.
Right.
It should become more routine, right?
Yeah, one of the reasons why you see the kind of program going up and down basically is because, you know, we found things like at Leahy where, you know, the foundation of the infiltration that we had to address. We can't really put a curator in there when there's, you know, significant water coming through the original foundation. And then we look at Dreamsville Tavern, and deferred maintenance has created, you know, a whole wall of termite damage
Yeah.
that literally had to be replaced. And then we found out the roof was also damaged badly by termites. So this backs us up, because every time we move a property up and we find this condition goes down, then that's what happens. Barrett has, you know, considerations. Yes, we can move it up, but then we also the park is growing out there. You know, we're putting parking and things out there. So how attractive is that to a residential situation? Probably not. Maybe a commercial situation, yes. But
Yeah, we
that'd be
can't,
my answer about that.
right, we can't make our decisions solely on this, but that's the one I'm bugged about the most.
Yeah.
It is also in a highly visible area.
Part of also the issue with Barrett is it came back with a really high treatment plan. It needed a lot of work. So we did a lot of this infrastructure work to bring it down, but it took a while to do that, you know, right? We did the infrastructure work, you know, the septic tank, the water, the electrical work. Now we're considering doing the roof. If we do that, then it's going to bring that treatment plan down to an acceptable level.
Right.
But I agree, it is hard to argue that you put Barrett House in front of Fairfax Arms or
can.
Union Farm
Yeah.
because of the historical significance of both.
Even Leahy would move up, see,
Yeah,
but it couldn't because of the foundation issues.
I got an idea. Since they're so close together, we could do the Fairfax Arms and
Yeah,
Barrett
right.
House together. What do you think?
Yeah.
Nice try.
I know Tim's interested in Dreamsville Tavern. We'd
Oh,
love to do that one
absolutely.
too, but again,
Oh, yeah, and I
So we get
I
the
feel-
work done,
I
yeah.
feel so guilty. I already have two.
yeah, really, you got more than anyone.
Fair. There's some districts that don't have any.
Pretty good couple of years here.
All right. Any more questions? Because I want to try to get us back on schedule. Any?
Yeah.
Mike's got a question.
Oh, excellent. I'm sorry, Mike. Please go ahead.
That's all right. Yeah, I just wanted to say thank you for all you're doing on this program. I'll try and say this in my board matters also, put it, I guess, on the official record. But the resident curator program, when the committee first got together in the county to try to form it, at the time they said it would take probably 2 years to try to get it up and to just get through that initial process. We got that initial process done in like 7 months because there were folks that really wanted to get this done. And you all have done a lot of work. I know there's a lot of folks in the community that appreciate it. So I'm not sure if everybody that's in the room right now making a presentation will be there at the end of the meeting. So I just wanted to say that now to y'all. Thanks for all you're doing.
Yep. Appreciate that. Absolutely. Thank you, Mike. Hey, anyone else? All right. We're adjourned.
Thank you.
Thank you all.
You're welcome. Thank you.
Dr. Carter, you're up.
Wonderful. Can I be heard? Seen? Greetings, everyone. I will bring the awards committee meeting to order. So I'm going to ask if Allison, if you're ready with the slides.
I am going to bring them up and Jay is going to present.
Thank you.
Good evening, Jay Cole, Executive Director of the Park Authority. We wanted to follow up a little bit with the conversation that we had last, I think it was last board meeting, talking about the future of the Ellie Doyle Awards Program. Some options that came up was to not have it indoors. For the record, we are having it. This is not affecting what we're doing this year for Ellie Doyle, but what we're really talking about is the future of Ellie Doyle. So next slide. So location. So we're talking about, if we're talking about having Ellie Doyle's in the future on Park Authority property, we would want a location that would be the size to host 250 or more attendees indoors, or an outdoor event would require a tent with surfacing to accommodate a variety of weather possibilities. So one of the things that we're talking about, if that's the direction that we want to go, is looking at locations on parkland where we could, potentially design and build a tent pad. And the benefit of designing and building a tent pad is that it's now something that we can permit when we're not having Ellie Doyle's, weddings, big events. Tent pads are nice because they just sort of if they're designed well, they blend into the landscape and it just looks like a hard surface for people to put, you know, picnic tables down on, but then a tent pad goes up there. So that's the direction that we want to go to, and I'll leave it up to you guys to discuss. So that would be our preference, is to look there for the future. So next slide. So if we wanted to go that direction, and if we wanted to have it outside, right now, Ellie Doyle's are in the winter, so it's cold. And so we don't want to have it in, if we're going to go outside, we don't want to have it outside in the cold. So the options we were discussing would be to move it up to sort of late summer, early fall type time frame, but now we're getting into the August break and then budget in September. The other option is to move it forward so that it is in the spring. We think a spring Ellie Doyle would be a good time frame to have Ellie Doyles. So for this next year, what we would be proposing, or will be up for discussion, would be to, instead of having it next, when is Ellie Doyle? November? So next November, push it back a few months and have it the next, so it would be spring of 2025. So we wouldn't technically have a 2024 Ellie because we move it to the spring, and then we can continue to have it every spring. What that would also do is it would give us time to identify location, potentially design and build a tent pad, and we can have that on site. So it seems like it's moving a year, but it's not really moving it a year. It's moving it one season forward, would be the idea. And the next slide is that. The other thing that we have been talking about, I've been talking about with individual board members, specifically Dr. Carter and Kyle, is what do we want? So if we were to move it to a park site, what that would then do, I don't want to say saving money, because, you know, money's money and we can use it for other stuff, but we would possibly be able to have like a local celebrity or an MC to manage that awards program and spend the money on that, since we will already have a site and we don't have to spend money on procuring a site. So it's just something to think about, is how do we want to sort of jazz it up a little bit to make it sort of a must-attend event for everybody. And so those are the three, those are the three, right? Okay, those are the three proposals, discussion items that we wanted to throw out there, and I'll leave it open for discussion.
I've got a couple of comments. I love all these ideas. There are a couple of things that I'd like to throw into the mix. One is the local celebrity. You might not have to pay, depending on who you're thinking of. But given my
volunteering,
I'm sorry.
Are you volunteering to be our local celebrity?
I'm not a celebrity. I've done it enough, though. If you pay, I might. I don't know. I didn't realize there was pay involved. But one of the things you might consider instead of paying that is music. Mm-hmm. If it's a sign of a social occasion of some kind, having background music, and I mean live music, or if you can't afford that, then some kind of thing outside. That was a suggestion. The second is, I'm sure you all have thought about it, but I mean, wherever this pad is, it's got to be located somewhere where there are facilities for food, drink, and the other parts, right? So I'm assuming that's part of your thought.
If that's the direction that you would like us to look into, then the first thing that we would do is we would do a program of requirements as to what this thing, because we want it to work for both ours and everything else. And we would have a site selection criteria, and we would go out in the field, we'd look at it, and then we'd come back and say, you know, these are some of the sites, because we would be using CIP dollars, because it would be an amenity that would be available that we don't really have here at all. An amenity to have, you know, large events, weddings, those kind of things.
Tim Hackman. Another question would be, the pad would certainly give us the opportunity for, as a rental facility or rental venue for future income. But another option would be if one is able to lay temporary flooring on, for example, a turf field, that could then obviate the need for having to find a location for the capital expense of creating a permanent facility, but yet would provide potentially a large enough area where we could host such an event. I'm not pushing for one or the other. I'm just saying that might be an option to think about.
We'll look into. We didn't want to exhaust all, really get into it without this discussion.
Sure.
First, I think that everything is on. Bill suggested something that we had thought about. As well. I think that everything is on the table. As for options as to what we do. Maybe it's an interim thing. Maybe we don't fit it in the CIP this year, and we do someplace else for temporary until we can get the more permanent one constructed. Everything I think is.
By the way, Tim Hackman again. I do like the idea of having it at one of our sites, and whether it's a temporary or permanent pad, that would be great.
I'd just like to just my opinion about the celebrity host and stuff like that. My feeling on that is that we have some excellent speakers in this group, and frankly, I've never seen that there be any compromise in MC in this event ever. Anybody that's ever emceed it that I've witnessed has done an absolute great job. And using one of the board members to do it, that's a good speaker, ensures that that person has an appreciation for what these people have done and a love for parks. So I'm not thinking that really benefits. All right, so we get somebody with name recognition, but we really don't know how interested they are in our cause or not. But having one of our excellent speakers on the board, how interested they are in the parks, how much they appreciate what the people have done, and how much they've heard about them already and are familiar with their work. So just my opinion about the MC thing.
Well, I'll take an alternative view.
Okay.
Because I think it's an outstanding opportunity to have a hook with the foundation and do fundraising off of it at the same time. I think that
I was thinking of you as one of the excellent speakers.
Thank you, sir. I appreciate that. I raise a lot of money too, but I think that if you do have an outside speaker, I think it's a speaker that would be able to attract more bodies, and those bodies should be interested in how they can contribute either monetarily or volunteer wise to the effort.
So if I might add, I was going to wait. This is Cynthia Jacobs Carter. I wanted to wait to hear what the various comments were going to be, but I want to hook right into this particular part of the conversation. While I understand us having MCs who are a part of the board or the organization, somehow that's great. That's what we've been doing. But I think that if we have someone such as a TV personality, a weather person from a local TV station, something like that, it is an added attraction, as well as that a lot of them are hometown people, so they already know and love the parks. In addition to that, they always give us plugs on their TV stations if it's a weather person, Brian somebody or other, who would be that MC. So, and quite often they will bring out their team to photograph or to record some of what's going on. So that's added attention, and funding opportunities could stem from that maybe. So I just wanted to add that part.
So I just want to jump in here. This is Kyle Stone. And I kind of aligned myself with Bill and Cynthia in terms of the MC thought. And I actually was wondering about if we could do it for 2023. I don't know if we're too close to November to at least look into the possibility of maybe making something happen there. The other thought I had, Jay and I were at the Northern Virginia Conservation Trust fundraiser / awards ceremony. I don't know what that was, 3 weeks ago, something like that. And I don't know that I understand or know how much the foundation is involved in the Ellie's right now, but I'm wondering, talking out loud, if we could do something like MVCT does, use an opportunity to raise money in addition to doing the awards. And then the final thing is, it sounds like there's general agreement about moving forward in terms of looking for a location on park property, pad, temporary, whatever the case would be. So what would be the timing for you all to come back to us and say, these are either the criteria or these are the sites we've identified as possible?
So First, I think it is possible. I mean, we'll tell you if it's not possible. I think it is possible to start looking into whether or not we can get an MC for this year. So we will start doing that. I think that the other one would be, we would treat it like any other project, and we would start to go through everything and then come back when we have a proposal to show. We might do a little bit more in depth as what we have thought about, because I'm sure, you know, everybody would like it to be closer to your district, but we have a program requirements to try to, you know, figure out. We do want to make it something that would be great for this event, but also that would bring in a lot of attraction for events and weddings and retreats and those kind of things. So we would treat it like a project. We would we would also probably parallel so we can see what the time frame is, figure out what an interim use was. Maybe an interim use would be someplace else for 1 year if we're not going to be able to get it in construction by the next year. So we would come back once it's something that's got meat to it to say this is where we're thinking of doing it. We would treat it like a project for a pad that would come here for approval.
Yeah, this is Maggie. I really like the idea of trying to do this if we can, even if it's a little bit makeshift, just so that we sort of understand what the pitfalls and everything are. Even if it's not something we're going to permanently use, and we're going to build something later. And once again, I'm going to say it again. I have talked to reporters and what have you, and asked them to donate their time for debates and what have you. They never charge. Right. So I don't think that's going to be an expense. Finally, I will say that, yes, I've done a lot of events where we're going to do something award-like, and we seek sponsors to offset the cost. And so it's definitely a fundraising opportunity.
Right. Agreed. It is.
Okay, I think we have our marching orders on that. Thank you very much.
Excellent.
Yeah, I know we don't need to say this, but parking also is going to be a big consideration. I know you know that. I'm just want to add that. A place with, of course, ample parking opportunity.
Okay. All right.
Anything else, Cynthia, or we adjourn?
Is there anything else that for the good of the order in this meeting? If not, yes.
Let me, this is Tim Hackman. Let me just raise one other thing, and that is clearly, if we put it off a year and a half, that gives us a little bit of grace in terms of nominations and things like that for the next cycle. But one of the things that occurred to me is we have recently been having a hard time drumming up nominations in some respects, and just a thought. What about considering, say, splitting the awards so that we do an Ellie and some other categories 1 year, and the next year we do Strickland and some other categories, so that we have in essence a biennial cycle for each of the awards, and this would perhaps have others worthy people rise to the surface and be recognized. So anyway,
I really like the idea. It makes the awards themselves more special because they're less frequent. Would shorten it a little bit. We could embellish a little bit more on the ones that we do celebrate for that year. I think that's a great idea.
I agree.
Merit to that.
Yep.
I think that since we're talking about changing so much in a good way of adding the fundraising, I think that maybe we can put something besides separate of the tent pad, maybe put something on in the spring to really just talk about what like the meat and bones of the LA, because if we're doing a fundraiser, what does that look like? How are we raising, you know, all of that stuff. So we have it well in time to give ourselves 10 months to, you know, hit the first one out of the ballpark.
Sounds good. And I will underscore what Kyle said, and that is a celebrity MC for this particular Ellie this fall is well worth considering. Anyway,
we'll definitely get back to you on that as well.
Thank you. Anything else? Thank you all. And I call this meeting adjourned.
This is Linwood Forum, and I call the Park Operations Committee to order. And Kim, am I turning it over to you? Or... Okay.
Thank you, Linwood.
Thank you, Kim.
Hello, everyone. Kim Eckert, Division Director of Park Operations. Tonight we have 2 Maston Brook grant requests for your consideration. The first is the field conversion at Linway Terrace Park, and the second is a fencing replacement project at Frying Pan Farm Park. going to turn it over to Paul Shirey at this time to cover the Linway Terrace Park project.
All right, thanks. You can go to the next slide, please. I can advance it. All right. All right, so I'm Paul Shirey in the Planning and Development Division. The Park Authority Executive Director recommends approval of the Maston Brook Volunteer Matching Fund Grant request from the McLean Little League in the amount of $20,000 to help fund a project to convert the existing grass diamond field to synthetic turf at Linway Terrace Park. So this is the layout there. The field we're talking about is field 2, and field 1 already is synthetic turf there. And go on with the rest of it here. So action is requested today, June 28th, in order to award the grant. And the league is requesting $20,000 as a Maston Brook grant to help fund this project to convert the diamond field to synthetic turf. And they're going to pay for the full cost of the project other than the grant amount. And the total funding required for complete project, as design and construction and everything else, is estimated to be between 1.2 and 1.3 million at this time. So this includes the design development, site plan preparation, stormwater management, permitting, and Park Authority project management time, as well as then the construction, testing, and inspection. And we anticipate that the turf installation would be performed by Field Turf, which it would be by means of a national contract that the county has. And given all the variables and market uncertainties with this project, we recommend a 2-step process for the league. So it's a 2-step donation. So moving on to the next slide here. So the first phase of this would be that upon approval of the Maston Brook grant for $20,000, then the league would submit to the Park Foundation $230,000 to then begin this design phase and permitting phase. And then once we would have the design completed, have our permits, to get to 100% design there, we would get the actual construction amount, the construction cost at that time based on pricing from Field Turf. So then we'd be able to know the full amount that the league would have to pay to implement the project. And as for the schedule, we anticipate that upon approval here that we would get our design contract going in July, get it approved by the end of July this year, and then followed by the permitting process, and then construction start would be anticipated for the spring of 2025, and then completion in the fall of 2025.
So am I understanding this right, that if we give them $20,000, they're going to fundraise 1.2 million for us?
Yep.
Yes. Okay. We don't have anything else to talk about here, do we?
And let me also just say in that respect that, I greatly appreciate McLean Little League coming to us with this offer. It's incredibly generous, and it's going to increase the ability to use that field dramatically, and everybody wins out of this. So thank you.
So as for the funding, that'll be made available through the donations and the grant funding, and the league again is on the hook for paying the rest of it at that time. So contingent on approval of the grant, then the new balance in the Maston Brook Volunteer Grant Fund would be $741,143.
Bill, you had something?
Actually, that says 741,148. And are there any?
Yeah, the only, I mean, I fully support this, but this goes back into the whole equity question of jumping the line. And I was fielding calls today from other little leagues that want to kind of do the same thing. So we need to get a handle on the process and, how we move these projects ahead. I understand and support the generosity of McLean Little League and Reston Little League and all of the others, but we've started talking about equity and how we implement these things. So I just want to make sure that we give it full consideration with regard to what's this going to displace in that schedule that we've laid out that we're already behind on.
My only thoughts, and I totally hear what you're saying. I support what you're saying. But if somebody's willing to give us $1.2 million, we need to have a way to have staff in place to take that money and not displace anything. So this.
But I think that the you know, I agree with both. It gets back to
I don't disagree with Bill.
No, I know. This is the hardest part of equity, right? And so we get to sort of what I say all the time is that the quality and quantity of parks in an area do not predetermine the race and ethnic and income of the area. It doesn't matter how it's paid for. So what we want to make sure is, regardless of whether or not it's paid for by other people, that you can't buy yourself a better park system than elsewhere in the county is what we're trying to do. So basically, but I do want to take the $1.2 million and spend it. So really what the work is making sure that on the back end, we're adjusting accordingly. So what that does is it adjusts other things. So it might push back another project in that area to move that project someplace different. And so whereas it's not necessarily going to be adding a lot of, fields to Drainsville or if that's where this field is, because it might displace another field in Drainsville that we were going to pay for ourselves to do one in Annandale, to do one someplace else, so that we're always creating that sort of that balance.
Yeah. Let me add to that, to Bill's comment and perhaps Jay's. What struck me when Bill first started talking was the major equity issue is what you were raising, and that is, there are areas of the county we're not going to have $1.2 million donated, and to me that's a bigger hurdle than the 20,000.
Right.
Yeah.
So I think I'm singing your song, and that's going to be very, very difficult.
Well, one of the things that we're going to, I think looking forward to the 2026 bond and the analysis that we're doing is looking into each category of thing. So fields would be a category of thing, and figure out how much investment has been made in all of the areas and how equitable we are, regardless of where the funding comes from. And so in that respect, we can then adjust for the 2026 bond to make more investment in areas that have been disinvested in. And it's instead of just looking at sort of the full list of CIP projects. Because I think that what happens a lot of times is that's a one-off, that's a different funding source. So it doesn't really count as to what we're doing, but it does count ultimately when we're doing it. We still want to do it and we still want to make it great, but we also want to we want to use the money we've saved to make fields other places just as great.
And I think that's going to be, in addition to a dollar challenge, a difficult conversation with area supervisor.
If it's managed well, though, I think it's kind of made the point. We need to just make sure any donations we get, we don't turn away money, but it helps move up other things where we need them from a diversity perspective. So I think we can make this win-win as long as we're conscious of what we're doing, which clearly we are. From this discussion,
very data driven.
And I'm sorry, I went out of turn. Mike's had his hand up patiently for a while, so I apologize, Mike.
No worries, thanks. I think it's important to remember that the reason we have all the rectangular turf fields, is because there was so much community involvement in getting that program going. Lots of those fields all over the county were built in partnerships. And I think we learned a lot in that process. I think through the turf field task force or committee or whatever it was called back in the day, I think we have a better idea of how this can go, but I don't want to lose the positive impact that the community getting involved had in actually propelling a turf program forward. Now, way back in the day, 15 years ago or whatever it was, the baseball community didn't want turf fields. That wasn't something they were interested in at the time. And the rectangular sports community was very interested. I think the diamond field community, baseball and softball, I think are now very interested in turf fields. So in a way, they're behind on that end. On the other hand, we can learn from it. But I think we need to be careful with the idea that if we're making a decision that we're going to partner with McLean Little League, and I'm all for doing this one, but I'm talking about projections in the future. If we're going to partner with XYZ group and build a field in partnership with them, that they are going to be the primary organization that has access to that, which is the way that our MOUs and stuff are set up. And we're going to say, because of that, we're not going to do a project in that district or community. We need to really think carefully about what that process looks like, because I can't imagine that sitting here today, we would say, oh yes, let's do this project. And then you can take away a field to be disclosed and determined later is going to be taken away, or a project of unknown is going to be taken away. So I think we need to give thought to the process, but also learn from the rectangular turf field process, but also recognize that this can be a way to jumpstart the program of getting a great asset, a bunch of assets built in the county.
Well, I think that one of the things to remember about the Mastonbrook Ranners, these are not, the project that's coming up right now is not the next project we were about to build. So if it was the next project we were about to build, they wouldn't be coming with money because we would be building it for them anyway. And so if we have two projects, and the way that we distribute our projects is to make sure we are accurately distributing across the whole county. And so what a project like this does is it inserts a project where we don't have that project in the list for the next 5 years. And so what that needs to then do is rejigger everything that we're doing. We can't keep the same list of 5 projects. Those 2 fields might be right next to each other. And so we do need to relook at the fields that we're doing, because this is not, it's not that they're coming in and building it themselves. I mean, it still is staff time. So it's taking a spot in the rotation, so to speak. So we do need to relook at, once a project like this comes in, relook at that distribution as to what our priorities are now.
Well,
and I'll say, this is Bill Bowie, and I'll say, Mike, that, you know, I totally agree and hear what you're saying with regard to the community groups, but it was because of those community groups that caused the inequity to have the synthetic turf task force in the first place. That was all about inequity in the schools and the places that couldn't afford it. Now we're kind of filling that gap now, but that's what caused it, and we need to be sure that we don't have it caused again.
Right. That Bill, I totally, that's what I meant by learning from what we went through is recognizing that. I think from a process standpoint, and I guess Jay, what I don't know is, let's say this is a future project. Let's say that 2 years from now, it's Project X with a turf, a diamond field, a little league diamond field. Saying yes to doing that without knowing what it is you're going to displace, because there's, you know, it's kind of like a trading players, you know, and you know, if I'm gonna trade some players to the Detroit Tigers in return for their draft picks and a player to be named later, at least I know there's a player to be named later. I think that we need to understand what it is that this might offset. So I'm just suggesting that based on what you've described, we need to think through how this process would work in the future so that we make informed decisions in terms of the impact on any given community. And because, you know, if we say yes to a diamond field someplace, and because of that, we're not going to turf a rectangular field, you know, there are community considerations to that.
I 100% agree, and that gets into the really hard part. If the other part was the hard part, this is the really hard part, and that's the potential of saying no. When free money comes out, if that's the case, and we come in and we say, this is what this, and that's what we're trying to get to with a data-driven system, is the if then what. So if this, then what? And it might be that we have a soccer field that has higher use and that we want to do that's right next to it. And we're saying, if we do this project, we're not doing this one for the next 15 years. And the answer might be, we don't want to do that. And that's the really hard, part of looking at equity, because the option isn't to spend 4 years or three years of CIP in like a 4-mile radius area and never be able to spend that money other places. So yeah, no, I agree with what you're saying.
I would only say about that, back to what I was talking about before, is we need to figure out a process to keep things equitable. But to me, it needs to be a priority that when somebody comes to us with money, we find some way to use it. That's all we talk about. That's the majority of what we talk about around here. We don't have the money to do this. We don't have the money to do that. We need the money to do this. We can't turn down money. We have to come up with a system that takes people's money when they come to it with us, but we meet the other goals and needs also.
But with fields, now I'm going to tread light. With fields, though, we could absolutely turn down money. It's money that they're spending for themselves. These are fields that only they are allocated. This is not fields allocated to other entities. So we could absolutely say, no, thank you. We could absolutely keep them grass and sod. It's not as if we're not talking about bringing in money for an amenity for us to choose at a different time frame.
I'm trying to wrap my head around it, but I'm just telling you, it goes against the grain to turn down money.
Oh, that's why I said 2 hards before. I mean, it's the data driven. It's not. I'm not suggesting in any way turning down money. I'm just saying, it's not always in our best interest. It's just not always in our best interest. So we have to think about it from we got to get past the free money part to get to is this in our best interest of the park system in general?
You just need to find a way to do both.
Let me piggyback on that.
I have my hand up. My little electronic hand.
Jim, go ahead.
Okay. I just, as a professional fundraiser for over 20 years, we can indeed turn down money we don't want to, we don't like to, but I agree wholeheartedly with what Jay was saying. And Linwood, I understand what you're saying, but there is some money that can be turned down and should be turned down. I'm just saying, we're not happy to do it, but it certainly needs to be considered that you can't take in all money. You just can't. That's all.
I'm certainly, if it's anything that we perceive as negative, of course we would turn the money down. Go ahead, Jim.
Yeah.
I'm not opposed to climbing hills, but these are pretty steep. We began the process effort, at least my memory was that there is going to be an identification of substantial needs in areas that require them. To me, and I thought there was also supposed to be a substantial ask for a separate set of funds to do that. Maybe I didn't hear that. That's not the case. Okay. Well, my thought is if you're ever going to balance them out, and once again, we can climb that hill, there needs to be a substantial amount of money set aside to appropriately provide in the areas that are not equitably being treated. And, I think absent doing that, I fear the other approach has got a lot of pitfalls.
And I think there's a conversation, Bill Bowie, I think there's a conversation to be had about how that can be done, not today, but I think that there are resources that we need to rethink that are available to us that would make that possible, make that a possibility. We just need to get there.
I think we're evolving around to, this is not the hard, fast answer, but have some sort of funding somewhere that matches our gifts so we can equally fund something in an equitable area if a donation that unbalances equity.
Yeah, and that's another option is to
Bingo,
to
right.
have a percentage or something that goes towards a pot to do fields and equity areas. We talked about that with our sports tourism, with Patriot Park, is to saying, okay, this is how your field costs $1 million. The field's going to cost 1.2 million. 200,000 goes into a pot so that for every this we can do, you know, X. That's an.
Well, even I don't want to limit the source of the money. You know, and I think Jim was alluding to. I want to say this. I'm just going to say it. The unplugged. Maybe the county needs to step up and match these donations we get for these equity things. You know, if we
I'll take money wherever it comes from.
So we go to the county. We say we have somebody that wants to give us $1.2 million. It's going to upset our equity balance. We need another $1.2 million from you to keep equity in balance. These are not to have all in all. I'm just talking about. I think I've made about 3 contracts. I'm all about getting money however we can.
We're not,
and if we can justify a bigger ask with donations, which I think is what we're talking about, that's nothing but a positive thing. We can get money from other sources when we get donations.
I mean, this is not going to be solved tonight, and this is certainly not against this particular one. I just want us to be cognizant of what it is. If anything, the real discussion to be had, I'll say it because I can say it now, is we need to redefine the way we do proffers.
Yep.
Proffers need to be extended to support the entire county and not a specific area unless that area has a dire need for something. Mm-hmm. That's the problem that we've got. We don't have a lack of resources. You look at Reston and Tyson's and what's coming available, that's never going to be able to be delivered in those areas. We need to expand that concentric circle and use those dollars elsewhere where they can be effective.
That's going to be tough with proffers. There's some legal things that
going forward. Yeah. You can't do it now, but going forward.
Well, remember, a proffer is technically a voluntary thing.
Of course.
So when you're volunteering to give something, you can attach language to it of what you're giving your money for. So there's some legal hurdles to overcome.
There's a way to write those.
Anyway, Mike had his hand up. So. Mike.
Thanks. Y'all. Clearly, this is very when I was talking about a process and how, as we go through the process, trying to think it through, it's because it's incredibly complicated. I don't know that we're going to get to a point where the county is going to let us, you know, the matching and those kind of things. I just think that we should continue to move forward as you know. As Bill and others have said, you know, it's not against this project, and I'm going to vote for this. I'm all for it. I think we need it. I think we need fields, whatever. I'm just saying that it's going to be very complicated, and we're going to have some very difficult conversations, and we're going to have to think through what that process is, rather than just kind of shooting from the hip here, you know, during this specific conversation. I think this is going to be long-term incredibly complicated to get through and figure out how to do, because it's easy when it's, you know, a field for a field. But if it's, oh wait, you know, if we build a field here, then we got to take this completely different kind of amenity away from doing it there because of the process, and we're going to put a different, you know, a different kind of amenity somewhere. I mean, it gets complicated, and I think we should learn from both the positive and the negative of the turf field process we went through before. It had an incredibly positive impact in terms of getting things moving. The county came through at the end and helped in a number of places that couldn't have done it on their own. And hopefully we've all can learn from what we did, but I'm sort of, I mean, with what Linwood said. I would like to be in a position where we never say no, but to reasonable requests. But I recognize that to get there, we have to be careful about the balances that we have to make. I didn't think we were going to necessarily go through all this detail here today, but I'm just pointing out that I think this is going to be a far more difficult process than we may otherwise have thought. And I'm going to vote yes on this, so I'm all for it.
So in that spirit, I'm not seeing any other hands. Do we have consensus to move this one forward?
Absolutely.
Yes. There's another one.
Yes, there is another one.
Absolutely.
Thanks, Tom. All right, next up, we have the Master Brook grant request for Frying Pan Farm Park. And I'm going to turn it over to Mary Oline.
Good evening, everyone.
Oh, there.
So I hope to make this quick. Maybe your stomachs are grumbling just a little bit. Anyway, so talking about a farm. So here, that doesn't help it either. So here we have a Master Brook grant request from the Friends of Frying Pan Farm Park, one of our incredibly generous friends groups. So let me see. Which one do you push? Okay, there it goes. Okay, so at Frying Pan Farm Park, we welcome over 500,000 visitors a year, which means it's really important that we have fencing that is safe and sturdy to protect the visitors and the animals. Some of the fencing at the farm is now almost 2 decades old and approaching the end of its life cycle. This particular project will replace 2,666 linear feet of severely degraded fencing. And in its place, a new oak board fence will be installed. So do I have a mouse here? Anyway, so in the lower right is where the visitor center is, just to orient you a little bit on the map. And in the upper left is the indoor arena. So the area where we will be installing the fences is in the core area, the core animal field area in the park. So the project, we have a quote from Long Fence for just under $40,000, and they were proposing $19,995 from the Friends of Frying Pan Farm Park, and the balance an equal amount from the Master Brook funding grant to meet the total funding. And then the fiscal impact is typical, that the $19,995 from the Park Bond Fund, from the Master Brook, and that it will reduce the Master Brook volunteer grant by the amount that you see on the screen.
Bill, you had a question or a comment?
No question.
Do we have any questions?
This is true sweat equity. Move this forward.
Absolutely. All right.
And one thing I was going to mention about this is this park is somewhat dual purpose. You know, there are people with horses and that use it, you know, for their personal hobby and stuff like that. But this is more of a regional park that serves all equities. So a little bit easier. And frankly, even with the fields, they don't often serve the exact neighborhood that they're placed in. People come from a long way away. So not to the degree that this farm is, but those are equitable in nature because they're not necessarily dependent on their placement for use. You know, like any field that I've ever taken my kids to play on was a minimum of 8 miles to my house. And there's some anomalies why that's the reason. But people often travel fair distances, you know, to get to the fields that they use.
And these people run a park. I mean, they run a farm.
Yeah. Yeah, but you know, again, it's open to the public to see this farm. Any public, anywhere. You know,
I would just add to that. There is a caveat that not everybody is as mobile as some other people.
Sure.
Exactly.
Yeah, I'm not saying we don't. The whole thing, I understand, is the neighborhood parks, and frankly, those are the easiest to identify. You know. Anyway, any other comments or? Oh,
yeah, I just want to underline what you said. This is not a neighborhood park. This is a destination park for the county. There's a big difference.
Yeah.
And it's that's all I have.
Well, Jim's point is good too,
No, I agree with that, but
And
this park is
frankly,
somewhat
even
unique.
programs like, we're talking about the nature buses to take it into different areas. The little campers with the wildlife and stuff like that is some sort of summer programs that can provide transportation to some of these places. Maybe something that we can look into too, for people that have limited ability to travel to these destination places. Maybe that's a whole new thing that we need to think about. Anyway, anybody else?
Well, I'll just add to that, actually, that's the transportation issue is one that could involve the county. For sure. And they have programs right now that take seniors to senior locations. The county does.
Perfect. That
could do the same thing here.
The model's already built.
Right.
Anybody else? Consensus to move it forward?
Yes.
All right. Anybody else have anything else for the Park Operations Committee? Seeing nothing, I adjourn the Park Operations Committee. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Thank you, everyone.
Yeah. Sure. In Quincy, I will call the Budget Committee to order. Of course, we've spent all our money now.
All right, we don't have anything left. This should be a short meeting.
We've just been writing checks over there.
Okay, I'll turn it over to you.
Thank you very much, Mr. Quincy. Over the next couple of meetings after tonight, we will have several budget items that we'll be talking about. Chairman Stone had asked us to come back to talk about some fee options in response to what happens with the budget. Also, we're putting together our overall carryover list for one-time funds at the end of this fiscal year. And if you have any input into that or any ideas, please pass those along. We'll be presenting that for endorsement at the next meeting. So there'll be several things, but tonight's an easy one. Tonight, we are requesting consideration of an action item. And if you remember, a few months ago, we came to the board, we talked about these different projects that we were undertaking where we were asking the board to either allocate unspent balances or allow us to spend forward some current bond funds on different projects. And between that and ARPA funds, we have committed somewhere around $20 million or so, and many of those projects are very substantially in progress right now moving forward. We've identified now at, let me see, 6 of our golf courses. We have identified some fixes that need to be made to the overall irrigation systems. These are everything from replacing heads to upgrading our controllers to working through some of the pump issues. But what principally this will allow us to do is to unify into a remote system, being able to monitor all of our different irrigation systems. And of course, that comes with a price tag. As we've worked through this internally with Ryan's staff and also some other work that Paul's staff is working on related to some stormwater surveys that we're doing. We've identified projects totaling about $1.7 million, of which we have $500,000 we've already allocated through our own internal sinking fund process. So tonight, we are asking to reallocate unspent balances to the projects that we've identified at Oakmar, Jefferson District, Laurel Hill, Burke Lake Golf Course, Twin Lakes Golf Course, and Pinecrest. And if approved, recommended to go forward and approved, then we will be getting these projects as soon as possible, essentially, once we have the green light to go.
Michael, just want to get some clarity on something in the background here. There's a sentence about 15.6 million in sinking funds. I assume those are county on the whole.
Yes, that's what we've allocated. Yeah, a little bit of our revenue sinking funds, but that's what's been allocated to us over the last 3 years.
So the county has given us $15.5 million.
Yes, between so we had ARPA, that was separate. We had 2 years where we had $5+ million. So it's actually about $10 million from the county and about $5 million from our revenue sinking funds.
Are we sitting on that, or is that just?
Oh no, it's all been allocated. Got it. Those are primarily focused on roofs and big projects at our facilities, but that's all been allocated.
Okay, thank you.
Other questions?
We're moving it to again. Did you list the projects real quick?
Yes, they're specifically irrigation repairs and automation projects at Oakmar, Jefferson District, Laurel Hill, Burke Lake, Twin Lakes, and Pinecrest. And the column there on the right, those are unspent funds that we're asking to reallocate.
Other questions? Consensus to move this forward?
Yes. Spending more money. Thank you very much, Mr. Quincy.
No other questions? The budget committee is adjourned.
All right, then we're in recess for a bit.
All right.
Buddy, stuff your. The camera's rolling. All right, welcome back, everybody. We'll get the formal part of our agenda started. First, Ben, do we have any speakers this evening?
Chairman Goodboxer, Public Information Officer. We do not have anyone signed up.
All right. Then we'll move on to administrative items. Administrative item number 1 is the recommended approval of resolution recognizing National Park and Recreation Month in July 2023.
So moved.
And second. Any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? All right, that motion carries, and this is where I'm supposed to read the resolution. All right. Whereas we celebrate July as Parks and Recreation Month, as designated by the National Recreation and Park Association, at a time during which we recognize that parks and recreation programs and legacy park systems, such as the Park Authority, are an integral part of communities throughout this country, including Fairfax County. And whereas our parks and recreational opportunities are vitally important to establishing and maintaining the quality of life in our communities, ensuring the health of all citizens, and contributing to the economic and environmental well-being of a community and region. Whereas parks and recreation builds programs build healthy, active communities that aid in the prevention of chronic disease, provide therapeutic recreation services for those who are mentally or physically disabled, must provide equitable access to all residents and improve the mental and emotional health of all residents. Whereas parks and recreation programs increase the community's economic prosperity through increased property values, expansion of the local tax base, increased tourism, the attraction and retention of businesses, and crime reduction. And whereas park systems such as FCPA, with 420 parks and nearly 24,000 acres of parkland, are fundamental to the environmental well-being of our community, improving water quality, protecting groundwater, preventing flooding, improving the quality of the air we breathe, providing vegetative buffers to development, and producing habitat for wildlife. And whereas our parks are instrumental in growing our communities by providing places for people to gather and strengthen the neighborly bonds of goodwill, and providing the setting for formative and enriching experiences for individuals of all ages, abilities, and interests. And now, therefore, be it resolved by the Fairfax County Park Authority that July is Park and Recreation Month in Fairfax County, Virginia.
Good job. You gotta finish it. I got one more line to go.
What's my other line?
The last one.
Adopted by the.
No, it's not on my paper. So what am I supposed to say?
It's on,
My script writers.
It's on the slide.
It's on the slide.
Scroll down there.
Oh, there we go. Adopted by the Fairfax County Park Authority Board on June 28, 2023. All right, now we're right. Administrative item number 2 is the adoption of minutes of the June 14, 2023 Park Authority Board meeting.
So moved.
Any do I have a second?
Second.
Any discussion? Any all in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
All right, any opposed?
I abstain.
Okay, not here. Makes sense. That motion carries. Action item number 1 is the recommended approval of the Massenbrook Volunteer Matching Fund Grant Program request from the McLean Little League. Do I have a motion? And a second?
Second.
Any discussion? All right, all in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? That motion carries. Action item number 2 is a recommended approval of Massenbrook Volunteer Matching Fund Grant Program request from the Friends of Frying Pan Farm Park.
So moved.
Second. And a second. Any discussion? All right, all in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed?
Aye.
That motion carries. Action item number 3 is the recommended approval of the scope adjustments to allow for project funds to be used now for golf course irrigation projects in the Providence, Mount Vernon, Springfield, and Mason districts.
So moved.
And a second. All right. Any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? That motion carries. We've got 3 information items this evening. Information item number 1 is the FY 2025 proposed budget development as presented to and reviewed by the Budget Committee on June 14, 2023. Information item number 2 is a 2023 legislative program as presented to and reviewed by the Administration and Board Management Committee on June 14, 2023. And information item number 3 is the update on park operations projects as presented to and reviewed by the Park Operations Committee on June 14, 2023. Chairman's matters. Rip this Band-Aid off quickly for budgetary discussion reasons. That'll be that Jay alluded to last month and Michael alluded to again earlier this evening. We will have to have an additional meeting and it's set for August 23rd. It will be a virtual meeting. So we will go, we're in person today. We'll go virtual for our first meeting in July, in person for that second meeting in July, back to virtual in August. But then that means our first September meeting, which is currently set as virtual, needs to revert to in person because we cannot meet virtually for consecutive meetings.
Okay, so.
So,
Wednesday the 23rd.
yes.
Thank you, sir.
And then Allison, you'll send an updated schedule to everyone. So everyone remembers.
August 23rd.
August 23rd.
Zoom.
It will be a virtual Zoom meeting. Yep. But we'll get an updated schedule out to you just so everyone remembers what I just said, because I won't remember either. Second thing I want to mention, the first meeting of the Lake Accotink Task Force took place Monday evening. This was came about from a board matter from Supervisors Walkinshaw, Lusk, and Chairman McKay. It's a task force community group looking at taking a second review at the staff recommendation for Lake Accotink, which I think I mentioned this to everyone before, was to not do the dredging because for a whole number of reasons, not least of which was the increasing price tag. So this group will be looking at it. I was asked by Supervisor Walkinshaw to sit on it. So I'm representing the Park Authority on that board. There's about, I don't know, somewhere between 24 and 36 of us. It's quite a large group that's being chaired by former chairman of the board, Sharon Bolivar. It is it's a public body. We meet, we're set to meet roughly every other Monday through the end of this calendar year in room 11 of the government center. So if anyone is interested, it's also my understanding being streamed live on channel 16. So you can catch us there too. Just to get everyone up to speed kind of on the technical issues with the staff recommendation on Lake Accotink. One of the 2 meetings in July, right, Amy?
Yes.
We're getting DPWES, the second meeting in July. DPWES will be presenting to us just get everybody up to speed so everybody knows as much as I do on the situation. That is all I have. Jay, floor is yours.
Thank you very much. Okay, so first and foremost, I was gonna, as you all know, summer is our busiest time. This is the first week of camp, so I want to really thank all of the staff who work so hard to get camps all done and started today. I feel like the hair club commercials for men. I'm not just I'm also a client. My kids are in 2 camps this week. And my son was super excited and asked me not to go downstairs in the morning and get my coffee because he wanted to leave to get to camp early because he was so excited to be with his friends and trade Pokemon cards. And so all you see when you go walk in are parents trying to rush their kids in, and all you see walking out are just kids beaming with smiles. So we talk a lot about the revenue fund. We talk a lot about, cost recovery. We talk a lot about, how much money camps make us, and that it's child age daycare. But what we don't talk a lot about that I like to highlight today is just how good we are at it. So thank you to, all of the staff that do all of our camps, and, they just are a phenomenal resource. Okay, next slide. So Park Foundation. So these are some fiscal year stats from 2023. They've already exceeded the 1.6 million in monetary donations in the current fiscal year. That doesn't include grants directed to the FCPA, pledges, or in-kind gifts. A check presentation to FCPA will be scheduled post-audit. And final fiscal year 2023 donations are being accepted through Friday, June the 30th, 2023. And thank you to all of our donors. Next slide.
Before you go to the next slide, I'm really looking forward to this new photo, and hopefully I keep my eyes open next time.
Oh.
And then also just want to say congratulations and thank you to the Park Authority, Park Foundation staff. Great year this year. I think this is their top money making year. Certainly surpassed last year. So onward and upward with them, and look forward to grow that 1.6 to something more, maybe 2 million next year.
Here.
Next slide. So on Friday, June 16th, the Park Authority board members and staff joined the community advocates and the Board of Supervisors to celebrate our park system and the additional support provided by the BOS as part of the 2024 budget process. So you see here a photo of all of the people who attended. Are they really? No, they're not. I don't think they are. I don't think they are.
I think I just take a bad photo.
I think they might be a little tiny. And so we thank all of our, as always, we thank all of our advocates, and we thank the Board of Supervisors members who came out to celebrate with them. I was not able to attend, but Sarah was able to attend, and she talked about how wonderful the event is. Did you want to add anything?
It was a great event. Very, very great to see all the supporters.
Okay, next slide. Daddy's Dazzled at Father's Day Car Show. So the 40th annual Antique Car Show was held at Sully Historic Site on Father's Day. There was more than 350 vehicles on display. We had live food, music, antique craft, and flea market. We estimate attendance about 3,000 to 4,000 people. As always, the total team effort with staff from across the agency volunteering to support, and a special kudos to our Sully Historic Site staff for helping deliver another stellar event. Next slide. So we also commemorated Juneteenth. The Park Authority honored Juneteenth with a series of events leading up to and including a special Juneteenth experience again at Sully Historic Site on June 19th. The activities included a Juneteenth celebration at Frying Pan Farm Park, Paths to Freedom Seekers Trail Program at Illinois St. Lawrence Park, Underground Railroad Quilt Codes activity at Green Spring Gardens, and the Forgotten Road Tour at Sully Historic Site. And these are just some of the photos from some of our Juneteenth event that were very successful.
May we add the special guest speaker, Charnel Herring, was there?
Yeah, that was at the Sully Historic Site.
Oh, do you want to talk more about?
I know, just wanted to say that she was there. I asked her to attend in my stead, and she did. So just wanted to.
Maggie's got my back on that one.
That was lovely.
Next slide. So NAC Pro New Professionals Award, you might recognize this face. We also celebrated Luca, who was awarded the 30 under 30 for NRPA award. We also nominated him for the NAC Pro New Professional Award, and he won. So we whisked him off to Michigan with Amy to go to the National Association of County Park and Rec Officials Award program, and Luca won that award. And I don't know if you wanted to say anything more, Amy, about the NAC Pro or his.
So it was Libertyville, Illinois.
Illinois,
which was very close to Lake Michigan. So
sorry.
We did see Lake Michigan, but I can't. The response was fantastic. Almost 2 or 3 dozen people came up during the conference and congratulated him. So it was a great experience for him as well.
We all know how much I like us to win things. And so that was really great. Next slide. And that's it. I did want to mention a couple of things that I don't think were on there, just to remind. I don't think we have one before then. 4th of July celebration at at Lake Fairfax is good. Am I stealing your thunder? Were you going to mention that? Oh, Lake Fairfax on Saturday. Please, and I'm hoping this is the case. I don't see Laura. Please let us know if you're attending.
I
Go ahead.
believe a VIP pass was emailed. to
Okay,
the
good.
board. Yeah.
Okay, good.
So they just need to show that.
Okay, great. I was flying by the seat of my pants, so thank you for doing that. If you plan on attending, and that's all that I have.
All right, let's start online first. Faisal, you got anything?
All right, I'll pass.
All right, Dr. Carter.
I just want to thank again the wonderful team, awards team, who are working feverishly to make sure that we have another great Ellie Awards program. Thank you. That's it.
Michael?
Yeah, I just want to repeat a little bit of what I said before about the resident curator program, and congratulate the staff and thank them for the success we've had with that program. Again, I was the Park Authority's representative on that committee or whatever the county put together to try to launch it, and what folks thought would be a multi-year process just to figure out how to do it, we did in 7 months or so, and the staff has really stepped up. So I just want to thank them. And then also, just separately, if at some point, I'm guessing this is Allison, but can we make sure that the calendar that she sent around about the virtual and in-person meetings is accurate? I say that because she has listed already the September 13th meeting as being in person. Correct. And not being virtual, at least in an email from May.
That's probably my mistake, not hers. I thought we were virtual. So it doesn't matter.
Well, and then I just wanted to make sure that, so cool. I'll just go by that calendar with the one change.
She's going to send an updated one anyway with the new August date and everything.
I was just busy changing my calendar and all of a sudden got freaked out. So thanks. That's it.
Assume I was incorrect. Abena?
I'll pass. Thanks.
And when you're done swallowing.
I just want to make one comment to supplement what Jay said about the Sully Car Show. It's one of the 2 largest car shows in the Washington area, and the Park Authority played a key role in that. They do a great job every year. Pass.
Bill?
Pass.
Linwood?
What?
I'll pass.
Jim?
I'll pass.
Tim? I have nothing park related, but I'm going to do a shout out to my mother, who was born before Ruth Hackman, who was born before the First World War ended in 1918. Tomorrow she will be 105.
Oh my God.
The resolution.
That's good. Solution for that.
And with that, I pass. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. It just occurred to me that means you might be around quite a while. We all get used to it.
I hope that's a good thing.
All right, I will try to be quick. First of all, I know we've already thanked the resident curator program, but I do want to thank the park staff for all they did to get the Mount Gilead house. I mean, there was a lot of stuff behind the scenes, which I don't need to discuss, but a lot of stuff to get that house up and ready to offer. And I, for one, because it's in the Sully district, I'm very excited about the future for that house. So thank you very much. Next, big shout out to the staff at the Sully Historic Site, because they not only did they put on that great car show, but in another 24 hours, they did the Juneteenth, and I was able to go. It was wonderful. It was put together very quickly, and there was some lovely singing. And as Cynthia mentioned, Charnel Herring, a senator, came and spoke to us. And my only request is that we do bigger and better next year. My feeling is the Sully Historic Site has such opportunity to teach about our real history of everybody in this county and where we all came from. And so I'm very much looking forward to the future for that. So big shout out to those folks. And then finally, I have a little announcement. Mark Abbott, who's the Chantilly Youth Association chair, asked me to tell everybody about this fabulous golf tournament coming up. It is at the Pleasant Valley Golf Club. It is on Friday, October 6th, and it's a benefit for, it's called Let's Play for the Girls. And it is going to benefit, they're going pink and benefiting the Inova Shar Cancer Institute to raise money for breast cancer research. So those of you who like to play golf, please let me know. I can forward this or you can share it. I'm not actually going to be here, but I'd be willing to knock around the ball and make people laugh at me.
Maggie, you spelled Laurel Hill wrong.
No, it's not Laurel Hill. It's Pleasant Valley.
Not Laurel Hill.
Pleasant Valley.
Not Twin Lakes.
In the Sully district.
I can keep going. Not,
I know that.
Okay.
It's
Okay.
the Sully district, which is why I'm here.
Where's Ryan?
Thank you. Thank you.
That was for you.
Sorry.
Allison, anything else coming for us this evening? All right, then the June 28th Park Authority Board meeting is adjourned.
Thank you.
See you guys next time.
All right.
Jay, you know Pleasant Valley.
Huh?
You know Pleasant Valley's out.
It is.
It is.
sort of,
I
kind of,
know.
sort
I
of.
mean, come on. It's just that, yeah, it's not really ours, but it's okay.